This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. This is a new one for me. I am recording this intro from a rest stop in the middle of nowhere in Delaware. Because, why not? Let's switch it up. I was actually just up in Philadelphia recording something else for this show that you'll hear pretty soon. And on the way back, I had to pee. I pulled over, figured I'd stop and talk to you guys for a minute. I hope everyone out there is doing well, having a good week. I've got KSHMR on the show this week. And man, this is a good one. I've been wanting to have him on for a long time. Great guy, extremely influential in some ways you probably know and some ways you might not. And he just dropped a new music video for his single No Regrets featuring Cruella, another past guest on this show. Big shout out to Cruella. That's up right now on his YouTube page. I'm going to link to that in the description of this episode. Not only that, he's got a brand new song called Devil Inside Me with Kays and Kara. And that's coming out on May 24th, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And I actually threw No Regrets into my SiriusXM show, Back to Back Radio, this week. If you've got Sirius, you can go there to listen. That's on the Diplo's Revolution channel, channel 52. And Back to Back Radio airs Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. And again, Friday mornings, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. I put a lot of love into those mixes. It's honestly kind of turned into one of my favorite things to do, to churn those out every week. But I'll tell you more about my meeting up with KSHMR in a second. First of all, we are brought to you today by my friends over at Serato. So many of your favorite DJs and producers are already using Serato. You know, they made their name on their Serato DJ Pro software. But what some people don't realize is they do so much more than that as well. For all my producers out there, I want to tell you real quick about Serato Sample, which is their VST plugin. It's a really powerful new sampler plugin. You know, I think an issue for a lot of producers is that there are so many samples available to you now. It can be really hard to organize them all, to find the ones you want, and then once you find it, just to work it into your project seamlessly, to translate what you hear in your head to what's in the software. And Serato Sample is great for that. It's one of the fastest ways to find a sample, chop it up the way you want. They've used their famous pitch and time algorithm, so the sound quality is really good. You can pitch it up and down, stretch it out, whatever you want to do. The sample's still going to sound good. It's going to seamlessly fit into your project. I use it all the time. It's just a great tool to play with. It's really good for creativity. So all my producers out there, Serato Sample, go check them out at serato.com. So, yes, KSHMR. I met up with him in LA. He's got a beautiful house out there. We sat in his bedroom with his two enormous dogs. We're talking like Game of Thrones style wolves. I mean, these were big, big guys. I had never met him before. I didn't really know what to expect. And he couldn't have been sweeter. Really intelligent guy. And he's had a hell of a career so far. You know, before he was KSHMR, he was part of the production duo, the Cataracs. You might remember them from like a G6, Far East movement. That was him. Bass down low. Dev, Dancing in the Dark, a lot of big pop songs. They were behind it. And we talk about that whole experience. It kind of blew up unexpectedly. He wasn't necessarily ready for it. And then to go from that, the duo splits up and starting all over again in a different genre, a different world. It takes a talented person to do that. And he really executed, man. One of those people where the hustle is just so inspirational to see. And the other thing I love about him is that he's very transparent. You know, KSHMR is famous with producers because of his sample packs and his tutorials that he puts out. He really shows his process and gives away so much more than a lot of producers out there who really try to hide their secrets. And I find that refreshing. It appeals to the community aspect that I always talk about on this show, talking about his record label, the community, the world that he's building. And by the end of it, I was feeling super inspired. I left feeling great. and I hope this conversation can do the same thing for you. If you like it, if you like what I'm doing over here at Back to Back, don't forget to help me out, spread the word. If you have a friend who just loves music, let them know to check out the show. If you put up a post, make sure to tag me, throw me in your stories, your tweets, whatever it is. I'll always interact with everything you're putting up. You already know I love meeting everyone who listens to this show. And in that spirit, don't forget you can also reach out to me at any time. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me on all social media at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod. Okay? So I think you're going to like this one. Let's get into it right now. This is me and KSHMR back to back. Let's go. This is a nice little setup you got here, man.
Thanks.
Is this, this is fairly extensive for like something that's in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Is this like your main rig? Or
This is my main rig, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's probably time for me to have an official studio, but
Have you ever?
not really. It's always been in my room or next to my room, and my girlfriend, she's not a fan.
Yeah.
I like it to always be available, but I think at least in a different room would be good.
Sure.
I was reading this book called Atomic Habits, which is just full of great information. One of the things he said was to have different locations in your house be for a specific purpose.
Sure.
Like your bed, you go to sleep in, so you do not check your phone once you get in the bed.
Right.
You do not put a TV, by your bed, so it's not a place you watch TV, it's just a place you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think my bedroom is a little too multi-purposed.
Yeah, it's hard. Do you find like it's hard to sort of just relax and be, at the end of your day and just, with that sitting right there
Yeah.
to just be like, work's done for the day?
I'm not sure if taking it out of my room would change the fact that I'm just constantly thinking about work. It's kind of
maybe it's a deeper issue. Yeah.
Maybe it's a deeper issue, but it wouldn't hurt. I think honestly less about me going to sleep and more about when I come to work, feeling that this is a work space.
Sure.
I think sometimes when I'm really in a week when I'm working a lot, it becomes a little depressing that I came from working 5 feet away, I go to bed, I wake up, and there it is again. Get back to work now.
Right, yeah.
Can be, sort of dispiriting, I guess.
Yeah, well, and mentally, I think having a place where you go, where you're sort of like, okay, now I'm at work, at least for me, because I've had bedroom studios a lot too, and I've never really had a dedicated outside of my house studio.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've had friends who have those, and anytime I'll go work with them, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. It feels a little more formalized. Something in my brain understands that, in the next however many hours I'm here, I need to be effective.
Right.
It's sort of less about just like hanging out around the house.
Yes. And I think external pressure is great. And sometimes you need to artificially create external pressure.
Yeah. I love deadlines.
Yeah, deadlines and having people that you are accountable for, or you are accountable to them with whether it be a deadline or making something sound good. I find I often make things that sound better when I have people looking over my shoulder and I want to impress them. So I think it's a thing we don't like to admit about ourselves, but we don't work as hard when we go to the gym without a trainer. We always take it a little easy on ourselves. So rather than to say that's some fundamental problem, I think the smarter part of your brain can artificially create that pressure.
Sure, yeah. You can be your own trainer in a weird way.
Yeah. You can start putting a timer on yourself. Like I write a schedule for myself when I'm very clear-headed and not in the thick of work. I'll create a schedule with the time I'm going to work on every little thing because I know I can't depend on myself when it comes to when I'm actually working.
That's interesting.
I'll think everything deserves another hour because I'm in it.
Right.
Anything that I'm working on, once I get in it, I think it's all important, and I should just keep on working on this thing. And then I'm at the end of the day, and I didn't get half of what I want to get done finished.
Well, how specific are we talking about with this schedule? Is it like for the next hour, I'll fix this snare, or
not that specific? It'll be. The most specific I get is probably sections of songs. So saying that I'm going to work on the break, or if I know something's a particular issue, the vocals, I haven't comped the vocals, I'll set aside a certain amount of time for that. Yeah.
Have you always been organized like that? Because
No.
I mean, well, you seem like, having not known you for more than about 5 minutes, my impression of you as an artist is, pretty prolific. I would imagine you're pretty efficient in the studio, able to kind of, do what needs to be done, that kind of thing. I'm always curious about how that evolves for a person.
There are aspects of making music where it's good to be that way. And I try to be that way where these things just need to get done. Okay, you need to tighten up this section. It just needs some EQing, it needs some leveling, whatever. And then there are more creative aspects to what we do. And in those instances, I don't know if it's good to put a timer on it.
Yeah.
Putting such an emphasis on efficiency, you might get a lot done, but music is kind of magical, and you don't know when something magical is going to occur. So to allow yourself to just be creative and mess around, I think is important and necessary, because I can sit down and say, now you have 2 hours to come up with a good idea.
Yeah,
it's not going to fucking work. Maybe on a good day, maybe it will. But I think your success is don't get into the habit, I think, of associating efficiency with success. You should be caring with some things.
Right.
But you should also be honest with yourself when it's been an hour and you're tuning a snare or whatever. It's time to fucking move on.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's what keeps all of us coming back are those surprising moments of creativity where maybe you accidentally do something, you change one tiny piece and it all comes together. A lot of it is what you said. It's the magic of it that happens in the moment. Do you have any early memories of those kinds of moments, the first few times you really made something and got excited about what you made?
Yeah, sure. In the beginning, it was a lot of things, learning new techniques. You feel like it's every week, when you're a young producer. I would say, to go back really far, figuring out how chords work,
sure.
And instead of just playing different notes,
absolutely,
saying that there, realizing there is a system to this, major and minor chords, and discovering pitch correction.
Oh, sure.
Because I was such a terrible singer and should probably still never sing on anything. But at least the voice that I could hear in my head to communicate a melody, I could record something and pitch correct it.
Right.
And that was so powerful to, instead of just being constantly embarrassed by my voice, which more or less I still am.
Oh, sure. Same.
If I have the time to edit it, then my voice can really be used for something, and I can express to you what I think a better melody would be or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing.
I think, for me, figuring out that I could have an idea in my head and actually translate it through software to something that other people could understand, just that idea that, this weird stuff that was flying around in my head could actually be transformed into, sounds that other people could relate to.
Yeah.
Something as simple and basic as that. I remember at the time, it was so exciting.
Yeah. I think almost stumbling upon it, for me, I had some success with songs that did that did something different, or that wasn't just me emulating the producers I look up to.
Right.
And when that happened and I found some success, that was a huge confidence booster. I think a lot of my career, early, or just me learning how to produce before I had a career, was looking up to mostly hip-hop producers, Timbaland, Dr. Dre, and wanting to emulate those guys the best that I could. And just through messing around, which again speaks to the beauty of just being in a studio for a long time without any time confinement, I stumbled upon things that were new, at least for me, and interesting, and then found success with them. And one thing that's tough as a producer is confidence. Everybody tells you, try something new, be different, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, if you try to do something different, and you're just getting started, it's probably going to suck, and it's not going to be a great lesson in how you should be unique and strive to be unique. It really requires, I think, the irreplaceable experience of having tried something new and it working and it getting people's heads to nod,
right? Which is a hard combination to get.
Yeah, and if once you be there, and in my case, I feel like I almost stumbled there by accident, probably trying to imitate someone I looked up to, but then found some success doing something else, something novel that I created. That was, I think, a big boost in me, at least when I'm having trouble with something, I can look back to the times when I did do something innovative and remember that it's still in me and have the faith in myself that when it does come, it might not be this idea or the next idea, but I will recognize it and then I'll know to stop and I at least know when I've got something good.
Sure, and I think you can also remember how it felt at the time, right? When you had that idea where you don't always know it's going to work at the time, right? So at least for me, maybe I'll try something new, something weird or different. And at the time, I'm like, man, I like this, but I don't know if this is really going to catch on. But then later you can look back and be like, well, in that moment of uncertainty, it actually was the right thing to do. And so if I face that moment again, you kind of have that knowledge to be like, no, push through that feeling.
Exactly.
And see where it goes.
Exactly. Because having had some good experience, some affirmations to your ability, when you hit that crossroads, instead of the doubt creeping in, you'll have the memory when you tried something different and it worked. And I think that really says a lot to kids and how they grow up into adults and succeed in life if they're being taught lessons early that trying something different will reward you. I think kids learn really early that trying to be different in some cases, it's really going to punish you. So the best thing that you could do is to fall in line.
Right.
And that really depends on your household. I've seen people in an extremely positive, supportive household that go out and kill it in the world because they're just not afraid to say what's on their mind or to ask questions. I think whenever a kid goes in a doctor's office or he's talking to a teacher and he's just too timid to ask questions, it's the beginning of a life of someone who does not feel in control of their destiny. They're just hoping not to piss anybody off.
Right. And just get out of it unscathed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really, we're all on some sliding scale of that, I think.
I mean, what kind of a kid were you? Did you have some of those kinds of lessons early on?
Well, early on, I did have a lot of lofty ideas, and my dad would kind of support me in them.
Ideas about music?
Like I was
just
really
about...
into football. I thought I'd be an NFL football player.
Oh, wow.
When I was young.
Okay.
And I created a little league, and I would print out all this stuff, and I'd tell the kids to sign up for it, and we'd come up, and I only got 15 kids. I mean, it was no real, thing.
Sure.
But
even just creating your own league as a child is sort of impressive.
Yeah. And for my dad, I was his only child at the time. I had 2 older sisters from my mom's previous marriage. But I think if I look back, I think he really encouraged that, and as his only child, probably believe that I would do all this special stuff, and and I was entitled to come up with my own football league, which didn't work, and it is a silly idea. But to get it into your head that things like that are not for other people, they're not for bigger, smarter minds than you. You could do it. You could print out a list. You could ask the kids to come, and I think. I think, and my mom, she was always supportive, and I don't think they ever shot down my idea. Later in my life, my dad being from India, he wanted me to stop fooling around and just focus on school.
Right, stop fooling around with this music stuff.
But maybe he had screwed himself by being too supportive of my crazy ideas earlier on.
Right, it was too late.
I had no interest in college.
He made a monster.
Yeah, that's funny. I never thought about it like that. Because most of my adult life, I look at my whole Indian side of my family as not having been very supportive of music until I found success in it.
Sure. But maybe they were just supportive of you as a person and as a person with potential,
Right.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. What did your dad do?
My dad, he came when he was about 25. He met my mom in school. He went to business school, and he now does accounting or does the financial side of. He's one of the people on a company. So I'm trying to explain.
Finance, business.
He helps count the money and make projections, things like that. But looking back, I understand. Having spent so much time in India, I really understand. It can come across as sort of fascist, wanting you to be a lawyer or a doctor.
Right.
But it is really from a understandably cautious place where if you weren't at the top of your class in India, it'd be a really hard time for you to make anything of yourself.
Yeah.
So as I get older, I don't hold it against them as much. I understand the perspective. It's ironic because a lot of families come from India or China or whatever, and they want to give their kids more freedom and less. They want to get away from the pressure they felt being in those countries, but they end up, imposing that exact same pressure.
Right. Well, I think it's got to be tough for any children of first-generation immigrants. And I am not that, but from a lot of people I've talked to in that situation, just those expectations, because the parents work so hard, right, to get to the new country and to make this life for their children. But then I think in doing that, maybe they don't understand that the situation for the children is going to be so radically different. Yeah. And that path to success will almost certainly be very different than the one they had to take to get there.
Yes, it's a whole different set of rules. Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating, man. And were you always musical as a child?
No, not really. I think the instrument that I tried to pick up in school, in elementary school, was a saxophone.
Yeah.
I didn't last more than a week on it. Later in life, when I started to I was really into computers.
Okay. Like video games and programming?
I was very into video games. I was very into computers and Flash. I would make little games on Macromedia Flash. I think it's Adobe Flash now. But and when the programs came out to make music, I wanted to make little pieces of music to go with these games that I was making. And then I felt empowered by that because, I could create something, create music. At first, it was just taking two loops and putting them over each other.
What software was this?
I think back then it was Sonar.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sonar and Flash even. I was like overlaying things in Flash.
Oh, wow.
Which just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
So you have a timeline,
You're right. Wow.
And then I went on to Acid and then Reason and somewhere in the mix was Fruity Loops and before it was FL Studio. And then I wound up in Ableton. And that was Dylan Francis's advice. He thought I was crazy for working in Reason.
Right.
But G6 was Reason.
That's so interesting.
Tsunami was Reason. Enrique Iglesias. I produced a lot of his last albums.
Reason.
Reason.
Wow, you'd never think about pop music being made in Reason.
Yeah, I know, and it kind of makes me shudder to think that I did so much of that stuff in Reason.
But I will say, I mean, Reason is a beast, and it's never been something I'm super fluent with. But the people I know who know it inside and out are some of my favorite producers. Because if you really know it, the synths are so powerful. The sounds you can get out of it are like nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, you're over it seems like. But
yeah, listen, I was a big proponent of Reason, and once you're used to it, it's got its charm for sure. But, they have VSTs now and stuff. At the time when I left Reason for Ableton, they didn't. Maybe it's different. I really couldn't honestly say because I haven't used it in a while.
Well, and I'm not telling anyone to use it. It's a little imposing.
Yeah.
And so as you went along, making these little songs for the little games you were making and moving into more serious production, how did it evolve for you? Like, was there a point when you started taking it more seriously, looking at it as something that, maybe could be more than just a little hobby?
Well, once I got it into my head that music was my thing, I never let it go. I was always intense about it.
When did that happen approximately?
Well, my parents split, and they had a pretty ugly split. And at that point in my life, I was really into sort of negative music, I guess you could say. I was really into Korn, Marilyn Manson.
You're speaking my language.
I moved on to rap, and that was Eminem and Tupac and all the West Coast guys. So music was just everything to me at that point, and especially dark music that helped, I guess, be some catharsis for all the angst that I had.
Yeah, those are my high school years, man. Yeah. I was using that heavily.
Yeah, exactly, and that was a good time for negative music.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, and I learning to produce. Hip hop is much more accessible than any Korn or
Sure.
So I guess it was in middle school that I learned to make a little idea. I would rap on it, and then I would print it to a CD, and then I'd bring it to school, and I was like, this is it. I've made it. I printed a CD, and
so you
that was
play it for kids at school?
Yeah, I'd force it on everyone to listen to it, and I sucked, of course, and then I got into high school, and I was getting a little bit better, and I knew how to make beats, and I went to a high school with a lot of people who rapped, and
where in the country was this?
This was in Berkeley, in Berkeley, California, and Berkeley was a very diverse school, I guess you could say, and we had a lot of rappers and people interested in music, so they all come over to my house, to my mom's house, the studio, as we call it. And they would rap, I'd make the beats, oftentimes on the spot. And I think that was something that helped me get good quickly, was the pressure, like we talked about earlier, of having people, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, they're there right now. They need something to rap on.
They need something right now, and you want to impress these people. And also some of these guys were pretty intimidating. When I started working with some of the realer, older rappers who, come and smoke up my mom's house.
Which I'm sure she loved,
Yeah, I mean, I just try to clean it up the best I could. But, it was...
how were you even linking up with those dudes? How were they hearing about you?
Well, I started to create a little bit of a name for myself, making tracks that would get, some spins in the Bay Area, some spins on the radio. And I just try to network the best that I could, and my price was pretty fair. I mean, I was charging, $50 a beat or something, It was...
Yeah, and in high school, that must have been super exciting.
Yes. So this was like high school, going to college for 1 year, coming back home, somewhere in the mixture.
Got it.
Of that, yeah.
And the 1 year of college, did you stop after that, or?
Yeah, I went to 1 year of college. I don't think it was the best fit for me. And so I told my parents, hey, I'm just going to give this thing a shot for a year. My dad was on the East Coast at this point. I moved back in with my mom. Me and my mom would get into it a lot, you know. I had this just unwavering belief that music was somehow going to work out. But understandably, the people around me who were, you know, putting a roof over my head and everything, they wanted to see, you know, something more material than
understandable
my belief. And so I started to pick up a job. My mom wanted me to pay rent. I started doing a little bit of tutoring. I worked at a Mexican restaurant for a while. Just some things. I worked at a macaroni grill.
Yes.
I was a really bad employee. Tutoring, I was okay, but everything else, I was really bad.
I did a food service job for a couple summers, man, and it was, oh my God, I was so bad at it.
Yeah.
It was so bad. I don't know. If there are any DJs out there or any listeners who work in music who were good at a food service job, you got to let me know, because I feel like it's just mutually
It's a little
exclusive.
incompatible, because I think we're very good at homing in on one thing for a long period of time. And for instance, when I was at the Mexican restaurant, I remember the lady would get so mad at me. I just wiped the same table for like 5 minutes. And she'd be like, you know, cursing at me in Spanish and
I worked at a little cafe, and sometimes they just put me on washing dishes. Or like, you know, it was a bakery too, so they had the big baking trays, and I would get them so clean, but it would take me so long. Like, I would get so focused on just making it the best, clean, most clean, sparkling. My manager would get so mad because I was so slow. It's the same thing, man.
Well, I'm starting to realize that I am that way, and how frustrating it can be when I work with other people that are that way also. Like my best friend who I work with, he's a really creative guy, and he works on all the visual elements, videos and everything. He's writing my project. And listen, I hate deadlines. Luckily for me, I kind of get to set the deadlines, you know, for everyone else. The song isn't done yet, so we're just not moving forward yet, or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, I try to meet deadlines, don't get me wrong. But with him, you know, he likes to put his all and his heart into the things he's working on. And sometimes, you know, I just want to shake him and say, you said it was going to be done 2 weeks ago. We can't fucking operate like this, man. You know, and I do realize the hypocrisy in it. That's why if you are someone like that, you really better set yourself up for a life without deadlines.
Yes, absolutely right. Or surround yourself with people who complement what you lack, you know?
Yes.
Like, so I was just with Party Favor earlier today, and we were talking about some of his collaborations with other people he's working on. And that's exactly what he was saying. He was saying, yeah, I mean, I try to find people who are good at the things that I'm bad at. Because if it was just two Party Favors in the studio, we wouldn't get anything done. You know, which I thought that was great. More of the same, more of what I'm good at doesn't help me, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think even though, you know, just to play devil's advocate, I think even two Party Favors or two whoever would actually work out, because it's often easier to give advice to somebody else than it is to look with a simple perspective at your own work.
Oh, absolutely
and
true.
look to see your work for what it really is, and not be attached to everything that went into it, all the labor. You don't want to give up the snare because you spend a lot of time on it. But maybe that snare just sucks, you know, and somebody else can come and say. So even if it was just another you'd probably do a better job at giving advice.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same. This is maybe getting a little meta, but for me, I guess I can replicate that idea where if I get too zoned in on one thing, like we were talking about tuning a snare or something earlier, if I get too into it and spend hours on the snare, of course you lose all perspective. But if I can kind of reset, and I guess the idea would be, you know, be the second me, like leave it, go take a walk for an hour, whatever it is, and come back with those fresh ears. sometimes that's all it takes. And then in 10 seconds, I'm like, oh, I just need this sound. Or like, oh, this was just the wrong idea.
Stepping away and coming back.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, man.
And I'm so bad at it.
Oh, it's of course.
I feel like defeat, if I had to give up,
Right.
But oftentimes stepping away and coming back.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
And so for you to take it back to what we were just talking about, you're making these beats for some rappers, you're getting maybe a little local name for yourself. How does that evolve and continue? Was there kind of any one big success that really set you off on a trajectory? Or was it sort of more of a slow and steady?
There were a couple of little things that in the scheme of everything, weren't that big, but I had a song called "Dumb in My Backpack."
Love it already.
I go dumb in my backpack.
Such
that I
a
did
great
with
Bay Area
a group
song.
called the Headbusters.
Even better.
Yeah, and my friend Dylan, who I'm still friends with to this day, and there's a guy named Mr. Fabs. There's a guy named Mr. Fab, he's a rapper, and
Incredible,
it was his cousin was in our group. His name was Lil Tay. But he ended up stealing from Dylan, stole some weed, so he kicked out. Anyway,
Sure.
but Lil Tay sang this chorus, "Dumb in my backpack." I go dumb in my back. And that ended up kind of becoming a little viral hit in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And then I got in the room with Mr. Fab because I was his little cousin. So then he got Mr. Fab. And I said, okay, so now things are starting to move. Then there's a group called The Pack who did a song called "Got My Vans On, But They Look Like
the
Sneakers."
Pack, yeah.
Well, me and the producer from The Pack, this kind of young L, before music happened for either of us, we were best friends growing up. We were really, really close, best friends.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then we had a falling out, and then we come back a couple years later and we're both doing music. It was really bizarre. It was really bizarre.
So you had a falling out before music was even a thing for you guys.
That's right.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And just kind of came back. We're both into music. So there's that. And then I had this song called "Baby Baby" with my group, the Cataracts.
Yep.
Now that was really getting played quite a bit on the radio. And at that point, we were able to do shows, local shows, sell them out like 1,000 cap or whatever. And that was really, and that was our first taste of like mainstream success, at least in the Bay Area. It was getting played pretty regularly. We were playing, getting people to come out and making some money from these shows. And I did another song with Dev, who ended up singing on Like a G6. And that song was called "Tonight." And that got played on the local dance radio station. So you put all these things together, and we thought we had something good going. We moved down to LA. I was originally couching at my friend's house, and I moved back into this little dingy house in the back of a real house. It's like a pool shed in the back of and that was when I made G6. My managers were sending different people in, say, "Hey, Niles is a good producer, go work with him." And there was these Asian guys, Far East Movement. I was like, okay, sure, let's go for it. And G6 came about really quickly. That song was made in the course of couple hours.
Really?
And
still while you were kind of just couch surfing and
at this point I had gone from a couch to a shed.
Sure, shed surfing.
I was in a shed, yeah.
That's amazing, man. I love hearing stories like that where it's, and again, I think it's such a unique pop song. Like I like that song at the time. I like that song now. And to hear that it came out of a non-traditional environment, like it wasn't a crafted in the most expensive studio by a hired gun, you know?
No, it was, I always like to tell this story. I tell it so much now that I hope it was true.
I love
but,
that.
I took the MIDI from, I was going to do the melody with this bell type of noise. I'm pretty sure this is true. I've told it for so long that I don't actually remember the day, but now I've told it so long. I'm pretty sure it's true.
Yeah.
That
it's true now.
It's true now. That I took this melody dun 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 on that was on this bell, and accidentally dragged that MIDI to the distorted bass, and that created the distorted bass line.
Those are those moments I was talking about before.
Yeah. And that was a really happy mistake. I mean, an extremely happy mistake in the long run. And we had another song we had done with Dev, and it had a bridge, which we thought was such a great bridge, and it just ended up being the bridge on the song. But it really, we like this could be a chorus, and so we stuck that on a G6, and that was the chorus of Like a G6.
Right.
And the Far East Movement guys wrote their verses, and I ended up singing this part that goes, "Sober girls around me acting like they're drunk." and that was it.
I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, that was me.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Back to your rap roots.
I'm a poet, baby. and yeah, and then that changed everything. And now that complicated everything also.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something I'd love to dig into is sort of all of a sudden having a hit where you didn't necessarily expect it at the time. Because
Yeah.
I think, and I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you have too, to people we know, where if you get a lot of success and attention, all of a sudden, if you're not ready for it,
Yes.
it can almost be harmful in a weird way.
Yes. And, there's a aspect of being ready that's more philosophical.
Sure.
Did you have a strong upbringing? Is money going to influence you? And there's all that too. But in the strictest, most practical sense of, I accidentally made this hit song,
Yeah.
you can't put me in the studio with Justin Bieber and expect that I'm a seasoned pop producer
Right.
who can do the right chords and everything else to do the right song for what the writers have written and to be that versatile. I simply wasn't. I mean, G6 was like a Bay Area rap song.
Sure, absolutely.
That's basically what it was with a catchy hook on top of it. So when the success of G6 happened, it was not like a regular song that does well. It wasn't like, it goes up, it gets worked, it goes up a little more,
Yeah.
it goes up, and then you get a high mid-charted song like 15 or 4. This song was really quiet at first. It came out, and then I want to say 5 months later, it was just like, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. It's number one in America. It's going up. It's number one in 12 other countries.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. Now, it was great because having had no real veritable success up until then, we could walk into a record label or we could walk into a publishing company and we are not entangled whatsoever. We don't
Right.
have any existing deal. So we're coming in, we're the shit, give us the best deal that you got.
Right.
And then we expected, hey, we're going to do some more songs kind of like G6, and these are presumably going to do equally as well. And, we had a mixed bag of success. Had another song that was called Bass Down Low, did pretty well.
Yep.
I did Dev's single, Dancing in the Dark, it was called.
I love that song, yeah.
Thanks, man. I wrote that song.
That's awesome.
That was me locked in a room. Song's about masturbation. It is.
Yes.
If you
yes.
listen to the lyrics, the song's about
Oh,
masturbation.
man.
So
that-
anyway.
I love that.
So we had some success in there, but it was not as reliable as we thought and
Sure.
as everybody expected of us.
Sure.
People thought you did this once, you have the trick. At least for now,
Yeah.
you're the guy with the trick. And you'll see record labels, record people talk about that. This guy's really hot right now. They have such a fucking stupid way of thinking. This guy's hot, he just had a hit song. This guy here, he's a opera singer, just had a big, we'll put them together, it's gonna be fucking magic.
Right,
they
right.
think like they just never just made a song in their life, so that's how they think. So anyway, now I'm getting shoved in the studio with all kinds of different people. And we went from being kind of a hip hop group that performed and rap
Right.
to more of these songwriter producer guys. And
Because you had done some of the tours as well, right?
Yeah,
like
we
you were doing
toured.
pop tours.
toured with Usher, did tours of our own, toured with the Pack, those guys,
Yeah.
toured with the Far East Movement. And we really consider ourselves artists. But now, in my mind, I kind of felt like, whoa, I'm this hit producer,
Yeah.
And, I'm getting appreciated for this. So I was taking a lot of sessions that really didn't have anything to do with David. And there were times when he'd show up and be like, what the hell am I even doing here? He wrote the chorus on G6, which is magic,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he really deserved just as much credit as anybody else. But a lot of these sessions, it was a little bit, they didn't want a chorus like G6. They're trying to write a chorus for Kelly Clarkson or whatever the
Right.
fuck it is. So that was the beginning of our relationship floundering a little bit. Dev also, she had a kid, and Dev's priorities, understandably, I think became a little bit unaligned from mine.
Yeah.
She also recognized that she had, not the best management deal, so she wanted to clear that up, and that became a big fiasco.
Yeah.
The money coming into it, on top of our just inexperience with really producing pop, consistently.
Yeah.
It led to us disbanding. First Dev, and then me and David. And then I was in a bit of a spot there where, on my own, I was trying to keep the Cataracts thing alive. I had made some pop relationships that worked for me. I worked with Robin Thicke, and we had gotten a great thing going.
Okay.
We became friends. Enrique Iglesias, we became really good friends, and we, worked on that album Sex and Love together. But it was not fulfilling to me. I kind of woke up one day and I was like, man, I really followed this yellow brick road of being a pop producer because of the money and everything, and I'm being looked at as this esteemed producer. And it was like, but it kind of ganked everything that I really liked about making music out of it. I was waking up every day
feeling like it was
trying to
work.
write songs that I wouldn't even listen to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
trying to feed the machine.
And it's tough. It's really tough to let go of something that's been working for you, because it hadn't been that long since I didn't have shit.
Right.
So now I got this big thing that's working for
and
me.
This is all in the span of a few years, right? I mean, that's the crazy part.
Exactly. So you're trying to milk it out, and it's really hard to admit when it's run its course.
It's got to be a scary moment, man.
Yeah, it is. And I have a lot of respect for David. Now, David had a really strong household, and he's a very real guy. That was another member of the Cataract. And he had grown up with a little bit more money also. Yeah. And he was not so persuaded, I think, by the money of it all. And he was able to make a real decision from the heart to say, this is not fulfilling. I'm going to go abroad. He went to China and did some soul searching.
Yeah.
David now, by the way, is doing Terror Jr., which is doing well. They're I think, headed for great things. So he's kept up with the music.
Awesome.
But that I had to admit to myself the Cataracts thing was not, it just wasn't going to see the same heights that I'd seen before. And so I went to my managers and I said, this time around I want to do something. If I start fresh, that feels a little more personal to me, is more of a reflection of who I am. And that's when KSHMR came about. And, they said, this is what you really want to do. We'll back you up if it's what you want to do. At the time, I didn't really know. Yeah. I was like, fuck, man, I don't know. This could be a total flop. This could be a terrible idea.
Did you know much about dance music at the time?
Well,
what was your exposure to it?
I had started to fall in love with dance music. I remember seeing Hardwell. This was back when he dropped songs like Cobra at Ultra.
Yep.
And I was like totally sold on it. And Carnage, Carnage?
Oh, yeah.
So Carnage I found on MySpace. And we met at South by Southwest, and then he came to stay at my place. He was staying on the couch, and he was this was before anything happened for him, obviously, and everything, and he was getting his stuff rolling, and now, obviously, he's a total beast.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well.
But he was also the one who was kind of showing me more and more stuff with dance music and kind of putting me up to it. And
what was he like, in those early days?
He was still a piece of shit,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a piece of shit now. He's great. He's great, but he's
Did he always
he
have
was
that?
A cocky motherfucker.
I was just about to ask.
Even back when he smelled like shit and he was sleeping on my couch, he still managed to be cocky. He was one of those guys that you got to respect. He'd always make you feel like he knew about the new thing and you didn't. He's like, he'd make you feel a little dumb. Like, you haven't heard it? You listen to music? He'd always have that
what are you
thing.
doing?
Yeah. He'd be always on the crest of the wave. He was one of those guys, and I think that really served him well.
Absolutely.
And but even back then, he was he's a cocky guy, and
but I
give him some money now, and he's 10 times worse. I'll tell him straight to his face.
But of course,
but he's a great guy underneath it all as well.
And that's the whole thing. And I don't know him super well, but I like it when people are the same as they've always been. Those are the success stories I like. Like he was always a little cocky and always a little confident, and that probably served him very well because it's authentic to his personality.
Yes.
And so when he's out there putting out this image, and also his music is crazy, people can see that it's a true reflection of him.
Yes. And I think if you want to say he's kind of an asshole, I think that's fair. But the people who attack him for not making the music, he's a real producer.
Oh, yeah.
Make no mistake about it. And he might think of producing in different terms. He might say, sausage fattener gives it more, way more louder, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But
Doesn't matter.
he's still using it though.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not for really anybody else to judge, because guess what? Making a song is such a beautiful, complicated, you can't put it into words process. At the end of it, you either got a song or you don't. You got a good song or I don't care if you used all the right vernacular.
Oh, yeah.
You could have a shit song, you know?
And so much of my producing, I didn't learn the right way to do things. I think I do most of what I do best. It's the things I do wrong, you know what I mean? And like the weird hacks and backwards ways I figured out to make what I wanted to make.
Yeah.
That's still my favorite part of it. And I think that's probably for any producer. It's those little tricks that you figure out just for yourself that make your sound stand out, you know?
Yeah. I think knowing too much can be a hindrance sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because you're always thinking of every box you got to check off. Oh, did I high pass it? Oh, is my bass in mono? You hear all these rules, and eventually you're taking the creativeness out of it a little bit. You know, I don't know how do we get on Carnage, and how do we get? I was just standing at this point.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about sort of the end of the Cataracts.
Oh, and getting
starting
dance music,
KSHMR,
right?
Yeah.
And then I tried my hand in ghost producing a little bit,
Right.
And because I was a little bit hesitant to just jump full force into dance music. I did respect it as sort of a sacred genre that people took very seriously. They took a lot of pride in. You don't want to be one of these guys like Will.I.am who just comes over and you're just like, I'm an EDM guy. You know,
Just
you want to
steals a bunch
respect
of
it,
shit,
and take it slow and take your time to understand the culture. And so ghost producing a little bit, I feel like I got my chops up with making dance music, because it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
And I got my chops up with ghost producing, and then that's when I wanted to really go. I had the confidence there to go ahead with KSHMR, and I had the confidence because I felt like I could give the scene something different.
Sure. And I mean, even with the ghost production, we don't have to go into specifics, but I mean, you had some success with that, right? Like through ghost production, you made songs that people really liked, that seemed to do well, that I'm sure the artists you did it for were happy with.
Yeah, they were happy, and there was a time when it was a happy, synergetic relationship. Yeah. Absolutely.
Was there a point where it flipped where, I haven't done much ghost production, I've done just a little bit, and for me, I don't know, maybe just the ego got in the way a little bit. Like I would get so attached to anything I would make that by the end of it, I was like, well, I don't really want to give you this because I spent all this time and I like it, and I want the credit for it in a way. I had trouble letting go of that.
That's funny you say that. You know, I didn't really run into much of that. Well, there was a time where I had a melody and I was working on it with a guy, and I think he wasn't totally sold on it, but I was like, I think it's pretty good. And so I kept it, and it became Wild Card. Oh, okay. Which was a big song for me. And there was one time, and I was working with somebody, and this person, I was making the melody. Now, this was pretty much a ghost production session. I was the guy doing everything, and this person was saying, oh, that sounds cool, or whatever.
Yeah, I like this, I don't like this.
That's right. And I made something that was really good, and I was like, this is too good. And I said, you know, I think this sounds a lot like something I've already done. I think I might be subconsciously copying it. Let's try something else. And then that melody went on to become Secrets.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Nice. Well, that was good thinking on the spot to kind of protect that.
That could have gone either way. I could have gone either way.
Oh, I love that. And so was there a certain point when doing the ghost production got you comfortable enough to step out on your own?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a constant exercise because, you know, it's often easier to produce other people's things. You have a simple vision of what will work for them. Yeah. You paint a little canvas and then you pick the colors that work for them. And sometimes when we're trying to objectively look at ourselves, we get a little tied up because there's infinite decisions. Yeah. We think of ourselves as infinitely complex people. Yeah. Looking at somebody else, you can have a much simpler vision of what you think will work for them.
Of course.
So I think ghost production really shows you all the options because you get used to pumping out songs for someone, and the whole arrangement is fairly simple. And then when it comes time for your stuff, you've created a list of a chart of what you will do for yourself and what you wouldn't do.
Right.
So you kind of develop your personality by trying a lot of stuff for other people. You have a better understanding of what you would do for yourself and what you wouldn't do.
And how did the Kashmir project come out of the gates? Because from my outside perspective, it seemed like all of a sudden, oh yeah, this is a thing, this is happening, this is something you need to pay attention to. Did it feel like a quick success?
It felt like the first song, Megalodon.
Yeah.
I really loved the whole vision behind it, the video behind it. I thought that, that had impacted fairly well. And it was very in line with my idea of presenting this sort of darker, cinematic artist to the dance world.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have the music to live up to that quite yet. I think that came quite a while later.
Right.
Like maybe 6 months even later or something. So in that sense, it took a while, but I think because I went into it with a certain vision, my ability needed to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was able to get a lot done in the first 2 years. And I also didn't tour. So at first, I was not touring and showing my face at all.
Right.
I hadn't shown my face online.
Building the hype.
That's right. And so that enabled me to do a lot more in the studio than most DJs are able to do because they're juggling, as I am now, a tour life with producing.
Right. At the time, was that a hard balance to keep? Did you feel like, oh, I really want to get out there, I want to go on tour? Or were you comfortable kind of letting it build?
I was very comfortable letting it build. I was almost scareder of if all the magic would get lost when I finally did go out and show myself. But, it needed to be done.
Yeah.
So, and I recognized that eventually I got to start making some money from this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I really enjoyed, that side of the hill is an awesome place to be. You're just cranking up the roller coaster, crank. You're setting it up. It's really the funnest place to be. And there are decisions you'll have to make. You'll just have to decide that, you're going to commit to something. I'm going to start playing shows now. I'm going to show myself or whatever the things are. And now you're a little bit bound to the rules that you created when you were coming up with everything. Like everything was new. You were trying new things. But now you've got, in my case, a fan base who like me for some of the songs I've made in the past. And when I'm making music, whether I like to admit it or not, I'm thinking about what those fans will think about this one, about the next one.
And how it fits into what you've already done.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so I guess one important lesson is to be very careful with what you get known for.
Yep.
I think in my case, I'm pretty happy with it. But I've seen people get famous in any realm of life, any industry, for something they're not totally thrilled with representing for the rest of their life. And that's a tough spot to be in.
Oh, yeah, because then if you try to sort of pivot to something you like more, it can be really hard for people to accept it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you talked about that you came into Kashmir with a vision for it. And I'm curious, at the start of the project, what was that vision, and has that vision changed over time? Like, what was it then? What is it now?
I think in the beginning, it was a big focus on everything being dark and everything being cinematic. And then, I wanted to incorporate Indian instruments and instruments from that part of the world into the music. And I got my first affirmation that would be something that people like when I did the song Kashmir and the song Jammu. Those songs, at first I thought, I'm just going to do these free downloads. I'm not really sure how receptive people are going to be to this. And it was actually Jorn from Spinnin' who told me, this is too good to be a free download. You got to release this. And he was right in that it became this pivotal point in my career where I saw how much people took to it and appreciated it. And it was so great because I loved doing it. This was exciting for me. So now using all those instruments with dance music, that was so, I guess that came a little bit later. The beginning, to answer your question, it was just cinematic.
Yeah.
How do we do it dark? All these guys are, throwing their hands up. It's all peace, love, unity, respect.
Yeah.
How do we provide the antithesis sort of to that? Do something much darker. And then as I go on, I don't always want to make just dark orchestral big music.
Sure.
There have been times where I wanted to, I think the biggest probably curveball that I threw people was a song called Good Vibe Soldier. And I just liked that song. And I was just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And it didn't perform terribly well. And I think it's like, hey, listen, we all want to be kumbaya and say, do whatever you want. You're an artist, blah, blah. But, if you don't consider your fan base, these songs are just not going to perform terribly well. And I think that was probably a case where I really liked the song. I kind of knew it might not do that well. I should, what the hell?
But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because your output has been very consistent. I think most of the body of work is pretty cohesive. And I think you're allowed. I mean, we're DJs. We put out singles, right? It's not like, one song will forever change your trajectory.
No.
Yeah.
No, but one song could break people's trust in you. If people see that, like when the whole Chainsmokers thing was going on, if you decide to make a Chainsmoker kind of song, a lot of the diehards, a lot of the, really core purists, they might feel betrayed by that.
Yeah.
That you took your shot, you tried to make a little pop hit and it didn't work with it. I think that it seems funny to put it on one thing, but that could be the beginning of your undoing if tastefully you make really a big misstep like that. Or like you try to reach for something that's not you.
Yeah.
Because, cool is a very delicate thing.
Sure.
And inevitably, once I started showing myself and started making more decisions, there'd be people who I lost the cool points with. Oh, I used to like KSHMR. Oh, his old stuff was cool, but now his new stuff I don't like so much. It's a very sensitive thing.
Yeah.
And you can say, oh, well, screw those people. But it's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's not that easy because those people are influential. They decide when something is pure and has honestly reflected something new.
Yeah.
You honestly came out with yourself and an identity that presented something new to the scene, and people respected you for that. And if you waver and equivocate and try to chase some trend, they might rightfully, it's to be argued, turn on you,
Sure.
and you can't really blame them for that. And if you came in trying to represent something, once that's been fractured, it's hard to get it back. And then good luck with the new fans you're hoping to make with this pop thing that you're doing.
Right. Well,
You have to understand that's a risk that you take and not just be resentful about it. You
absolutely.
have to understand it,
And I completely agree that chasing the trend is never really going to be the road to success. But given that that's the case, how do you take risks in an established project?
No, that's why I say it's very important that early on you're okay with what you become known for.
Yeah.
If your whole thing is just dubstep drops or something, for instance, you might later feel creatively stifled by that. But if your whole thing was, say, you just make pretty stuff with a beautiful female vocal, there's a lot to do with that.
Sure.
There's a lot to do with it. In my case, doing kind of cinematic stuff with some ethnic elements, well, I could kind of pivot a little bit. Maybe it's not always going to be really intense EDM, but I'll still keep the ethnic elements. It's a bit more multifaceted.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And therefore, when I navigate in the future and try to explore new territory, I can still do it without sacrificing what I came here and said I was going to do.
Sure. And I love that you keep using the word cinematic because that's been an exact word I always associated with you. And even with something like your sample packs that you put out, even those, to me, the sound design of it, there's this sort of epic, like filmic quality to so much of that. And, I wonder, even in like, when did you start doing the sample packs as well?
So I started doing the sample packs, I guess the first one was like 3 years ago or so, maybe. And I just wanted to put all the sounds that I liked using into one place.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to keep reaching for them. And I had become friends with the Splice guys. I really admired what they were doing, and I believed in them. And they talked about doing this sound section. I said, can I put a sound pack on there? I'll be the first artist to release it, and it'll be the first Splice, as the label behind it. And I think I got a lot of early support from them back then. And to get early support from something that goes on to become the most widely used platform for producers, it was, in looking back, oh man, what a great decision that was. And it was really, in that case, in the beginning, just follow my heart. I said, these guys are just trying to make a better world for producers. I'm going to fucking rock with them.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then Volume 1 was successful. So Volume 2, I tried to outdo myself and incorporate more ethnic instruments and just try to widen the scope of what I was offering to people.
Sure.
And then with Volume 3, I really just went overboard and tried to include as much as I possibly could. Anything that I thought a producer would need, I tried to incorporate that in there. And I tried to incorporate a little too much. I got in a little bit of trouble.
I don't know, man. What do you mean got in trouble?
Oh, there was, I got in trouble because there was, God, I don't want to talk about this sensitively, but there was a soundtrack for this video game called Doom.
Sure, yeah.
And I was really, really into it. I was really into the sound design.
Yep.
And it was my friend Sevens guys who had showed me how this guy, Mick Gordon, was doing all of it. He was running through all this outboard gear and coming back in. I was like, oh my God, that's so dope. I want to include like something like that in the sample pack. So then we tried to synthesize stuff and try to do the best as we could to imitate the stuff. And inevitably, some of the actual sounds, with effects and processing like that, I thought I was on okay ground morally, and I think I really just didn't check enough, and that really backfired, and I caught so much heat, and it was a guy who made a YouTube video comparing. They'd be like a little few seconds. My sample would be 3 seconds or something, and then this guy would find the part.
Oh, come on, man.
The song with that thing. Well, hey, I mean,
I
listen,
get it. I get it.
Yeah, he's not wrong, and then this got back to Mick, and then Mick posted a video about it, and then when he did that, his whole legion of supporters really came at me.
Right.
And it was kind of traumatic, to be honest, because I've really found a lot of pride in being this guy who gives a shit about the producer community, tried to do tutorials and these sound packs. And with the sound packs, the whole idea was to make them as cheap as possible, as opposed to people downloading every sound. I said, could we just make the whole thing cost $8? I thought I was trying to be the hero in my movie, for a producer community. And I got called out, and kind of rightfully so, I felt really pretty ashamed, and but the extent that people took it to was pretty wild.
I can only imagine.
This guy can't believe he puts out sample packs to everything. I mean, now listen, to be fair, there have been other cases where, like, I do, I take something that's out there and I process it, and I think it's passed the test of being something new, but people call me out. And then there's been times where I accidentally just included a sample that I thought we made that we did.
Right.
But these guys, a lot of them, just even on the basis of these 6 or so sounds, just felt that the whole pack of 3,000 plus sounds was just a scam.
Right.
And it really hurt. I mean, I had just gotten done spending 6 months Moody was here, he could tell me really how long we spent. But I think it was about 6 months. Just an unbelievable amount of time on it. And,
yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
It really hurt. It just really, really hurt. And so I did a little video. I posted a video. I acknowledged what had happened. I said to Mick, I was like, if you want the money that comes out of these sounds, no problem. I send you the money, and I'm really apologetic. And it wasn't bullshit. I mean, I remember I was at my mom's house for the holidays when this all came out, and I was just in the dumps. And I care so much about Splice also, so I don't want to be a black eye to them.
Of course.
I can tell you now, I will be very cautious moving forward, and probably just not even dabble in any waters that could potentially be, derived from something else. So
I mean, it's a tough thing to navigate, I think, because specifically what we do, and I think specifically dance music, and, we talked that you started off in hip-hop, so much of that at its core was about sampling and was about sort of iterating off of a single idea. And, one person makes it, then another person makes their version of it. And sort of over time, the culture gets pushed forward and evolves.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's tough. I relate to that story, man, because a lot of things that I've made, even if they weren't direct samples, were maybe seeing the way somebody made something and saying, oh, I wonder if I could use that same technique in what I'm doing. Yeah. And I think we all do it to a certain extent,
Yes. I think in hip hop, because hip hop was such an underground thing, the mentality was, who the fuck is going to care
right.
that I use this old James Brown break or whatever?
Yeah.
And similarly, that was my mentality when I first started making the sample packs. And I came to a really harsh realization that these aren't just little sample packs that no one's going to care about anymore.
Right.
I need to accept more responsibility, and I need to be really careful about where we're sourcing this stuff.
Right.
And frankly, I wasn't. I was in the mindset of I want to make the best sample pack that could just give everybody everything they might need to produce. And who's going to notice, Right. I thought a guy like Mick Gordon would never notice a guy like me in my sample pack. And it was irresponsible, And if you're Kanye now, you can't say I'm just some little artist who's sampling Aretha Franklin. No,
right,
you're not.
Right, yeah.
I'm not trying to say I'm fucking Kanye, but there comes a point where it's just not, you can't use that card anymore of, little old me.
Right.
And I'm kind of happy that we got to talk about that because I never, so many times I wanted to reply to people's comments and things.
Of course.
I see comments that are like, oh, the fraud. Kashmir. Oh, this guy. Like on a song, the new song I put out has nothing to do with it. Oh, this guy. I respected him until he stole everything.
Yeah.
And...
and it's a shame, too, because I think you've been so open and pretty giving to the producer community. Like you said, I think those sample packs are a very valuable resource. I think there's almost a joke that everybody uses them because the quality and the care is so evident. And you, like you said, you do the tutorials, you kind of let people in on your process, which I think is rare. I think a lot of people feel like they have to protect whatever secret sauce they have.
I think it's less rare now. I think you see a lot more people doing it now. So I don't think I'm exactly special in that regard, but I think maybe my stature in the dance community, it was unusual for someone to spend that much time.
Sure.
And sometimes I really question what the hell I was doing. Also, I was like, I should probably be trying to sustain my career and make new songs. And those tutorials, especially when you're as anal as I am about the sound of my own voice, I'm just cutting every and breath.
Welcome to my life, man. Yeah.
There you go. So yeah.
Is that an important thing to you, to be part of the culture in that way and to sort of, not only just to put your work out there, but also to kind of be in the fabric of all these people that are producing that may now use something that came from you,
Yes, a lot of Kashmir and everything that I've done since I started it has me feeling like I'm just a little bit too old to do anything that doesn't somehow contribute to a legacy that I'm proud of. And the only community that I really belong to, it's not the DJ community. I'm not even a great DJ. I'm a producer.
Yeah.
You know, I wake up, produce all throughout the day, wake up tomorrow, do the exact same thing. It's what I love to do. So that community, being that it's the one that I care about so much, I want them to care about me too, and I want to give something to that community.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not kidding myself, that's really the community that I belong to. So it's been very important to me to try to give what I can to that community so that in the long run, I can be proud and say that the thing I cared about the most cared back about me too.
Absolutely. And I think it's, the ripple effect of you doing that, it can end up coming back to you in a positive way too. If you put out a tutorial that teaches a young producer something that then they go on to do something that ends up re-inspiring you or pushing you forward.
Yeah.
We never know the results of these things, but I think it is a little hippie, but if you put that energy out there, it does come back to you in a weird way.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I think you kind of get known for something.
Sure.
Whatever the community is that you care about, if you take time to invest in it, you'll be more and more known for that. And if you spend your time on something you care about, then I think just as a human being, you'll be more wholly satisfied.
Absolutely.
With the mark that you've left.
Is your record label, does that fall into that same idea too?
Yes, absolutely. So the record label Dharma was at first a way for me to take these songs people were sending as collaboration ideas and give them a platform, still help them succeed, even though I didn't think they were right for me personally as a collaborator or I didn't have the time, but I could still give them a platform. And then the next step with Dharma, which is the website we're launching, will offer people tutorials. It's going to offer them templates. It's
awesome.
Going to offer them some free little packs that are associated with the songs that are coming out on Dharma. So it's to be a community of learning for producers and not just say, hey, listen to the song, but let's talk about how the song got made and let's learn and let's have weekly tutorials addressing different things. Yeah,
that's so great, man. I feel like, we kind of need that for a new generation because there were, back in the day when I came up, the producers I was around, everyone was on this one online forum, and I've talked about this on the show before. It was called the Holler Board, and it was sort of like Diplo and Low Budget, who was his partner at the time. It was their forum, and all of us who were in a certain scene at a certain time were on that forum. And then elsewhere in the world, there was the Laid Back Luke forum. And a lot of my friends were on that, and they came up through that. But it's funny, I never thought about it till you said it. I don't know what that is now,
Yeah, I think now it's a free-for-all with YouTube tutorials and Masterclass, which has had some dance music classes, but I haven't really loved them, to be honest with you.
I haven't even really looked into them that much.
I think the way that dance music tutorials or just EDM or modern music production tutorials can really work and be great is by taking simple like one thing and we're going to explore it and show you the different ways that people do it, like sidechain, or if it's like how do you make a fill sound really big, like even a tom fill, and just little bites so that when you need a database to sort of assist you with something, whether it's like turning simple, boring chords into more interesting chords, you have a place that is focusing on things that will make your music better. Yeah. And I think where the big master classes go wrong sometimes is it just a little bit too lofty, and they're going through what does it mean to be an artist. And for me personally, I love substance. I love quick substance. I don't want to hear about your day. I don't want to hear about what little dumb jokes you came up with to spice it up.
Right.
I want the substance. I want you to show me something new.
Yeah.
And that I don't think really exists. And on YouTube, you get some of it, but I think it's just such a free-for-all. There isn't really a nice platform that offers that.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to make some big stake and make be a big company like even Splice or anything. But I want to be where you could go and find these things.
Yeah, I love that, man. I mean, if nothing else, that's just a community, a hub for people who are interested in what you're doing to kind of come and inhabit, right?
Yes.
I love that idea. And, as we're kind of bringing it home here, you mentioned, you think of yourself more as a producer than as a DJ. But before we started recording, we were talking about how you're touring all the time now, and you're on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, just sort of how you find that life. I mean, obviously, you had the success with the Cataracts. You know what touring is.
Yeah.
But is that something you really enjoy and find value in? Sort of how do you balance your time between, all these various facets of your career?
I love the shows.
Yeah.
I love the hour or so that I'm up on stage. I like preparing new things for the audience, especially when I go to other countries, finding a song from that country that I could incorporate into a show. Everything else, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
I'm not, for me, it's not this great way to go and explore the world. I want to go out there. I want to connect with the fans, with the show. I want to see, the country.
Yeah.
I want to get a feel for it. But then I want to be home and I want to be working on new music. That's what keeps me happy. And I find myself unhappy if it's been a while since I created something new. Or if I only had a few days. I started on something new, but now I can't finish it. That stuff really kills me.
Can you work on the road?
I'm not great at working on the road. I could finish something up maybe on the road.
Yeah.
I could do, tasks, things that need to get done on the road. But it's very difficult for me to really create on the road. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and you get so run down. I mean, just physically, mentally. The travel takes a lot out of you. You're tired. You're on a weird schedule.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of sleep. Do you have any self-care routines? Any way you keep yourself healthy, keep yourself happy, kind of when everything's at a breakneck pace?
Sleep as much as I can, as much as it's afforded to me. I try to work out when I'm on the road. I drink lots of water. I try not to drink too much. Yeah. It's very easy to drink a lot at shows. Maybe I'll have a couple of shots before I go on stage to loosen up. Try not to drink too much. Try not to treat every night as an opportunity to party. Because when you're in their country, it's their fucking party. This is their big night.
Yep.
And you can ride that wave. You can go find some people who's like, they're trying to, but you'll be at another one the next day. So unless you're trying to die, quickly as possible, you can't treat it like it's your big night every night. This is sort of another day at the office. I'm not trying to suck all the fun out of it, but if in the long term, you just can't do that.
Absolutely.
And another thing for me is trying to just be deliberate about my schedule. And ahead of time, at the beginning of the year, say, we're going to clear all this time. It's just going to be working on new music. But
back to the schedule,
yeah. But let's talk about anything else, man, because touring, I just got back and now I'm leaving again,
Yeah, of course.
We just talked about being a producer and this is who I love and this is my comedian, this is who I am. And man. It's when do I get to do it? I'm not blaming anybody.
No. But I mean, those are the frustrations, right? Is that, you have to do a little bit of each, and people want different things from you, and trying to find that balance and still feel like you're a real person and find time for yourself too, right?
Yeah.
So, in that spirit, what are you working on that you're excited about? What do you have coming up? What should people be looking out for?
Yeah. Well, on the producer side, I'm working on an expansion to Sounds of Kashmir, which is just going to be song starters.
Okay.
So this one is going to be all song starters. And in this case, we're going to give the different stems and MIDI. So hopefully these are things that people get inspired by, can make songs with. And then I'm working on a plugin. And the working name now is Kashmir Essentials.
Okay.
And this will give you a fairly simple plugin for your kick, your bass, your drums, your synth, and your vocals. I hope I didn't say anything twice. But all the basic features of a song, it'll be sort of a suite of the different compression, multi-band compression, everything that you can do at once. So the idea is all the chains that I end up setting up, for myself for different things, just to put it kind of all in one.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with where it's at right now. So that's on the production side of things.
Yeah, that's exciting.
On the music side of things, I've got a bunch of songs and I just can't wait for them to come out. The next one that I have is Devil Inside Me, and that's with Kays, and Kara is the singer.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's great. The song is really badass, so I can't. I've already started previewing it a little bit at my shows.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel? To put a period on the end of this whole long sentence, how do you feel about the state of dance music in 2019? Because I feel like a lot of things are changing. I think, from a couple of years ago where it was kind of just a free-for-all and everyone was having a great time. Yeah. You're seeing some people drop off, some people change what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where's your head at with it?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there was maybe a bit of a cutoff where the EDM kind of guys got on the boat and then the boat sailed a little bit.
Yeah.
And you end up seeing those guys time and time again headlining festivals. And I think for somebody new coming in, it's tough. And it's hard to see a clear path to success. The clearest one is making something a little more pop accessible, I think. And you have dance qualities to the production, but more or less they're writing based pop songs. To be a guy coming out and really making a name for yourself with bangers, it's not impossible, but that was a very wide open door,
right.
And I think it may have more or less closed. Yeah. So I think using dance music or dance elements as a component to being just an overall song maker, I think is at this point in time a more reliable way to reach people. The bangers, the reach of the bangers,
right,
is probably at an all-time low in terms of how well you're going to do making just bangers.
Although I will say, I mean, like I'm kind of a bangers guy. It's I would say maybe what I'm most known for is that kind of stuff. And I love a big stupid banger. I still love it. But I think for me it's about understanding that maybe follow what you love doing, but understand where it fits in, right, in the overall ecosystem. Yeah. And if you're going to do it, figure out a new twist on it. Figure out a new way to freshen it up. Yeah, well, that's the bigger question you have to answer is, why do you matter? Yeah. I mean, what... God, here we are, yeah. What is worth it for me to give a shit about you? What story are you telling? Yeah. Why? How do you represent something different? And a lot of dance music is kind of just trendy. DJs figure out what's going on and what people want to hear and then just make that. Of course. And I've seen that work really well for some DJs. Some of the absolute biggest DJs, that's what they're so good at. They figure out what's going on in the scene. Yep. They get the right producers together. They make a song that fits what's in the scene and that they're current and they do it well. And, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not good at keeping up with what's going on. I'm not good at finding, the new producers and getting them in a room to make something that's a new song. So my approach is a little bit more like I'm going to try to represent something and carve out, some niche, section of this world, the scene, on my own. And then I'm pretty much going to live there. And I'll try some new things, but I'm pretty much going to live there. And that's great, man. That's because I think that's what people want is reliability and trust between the artists that they like, They like to feel like they know you and that what you do is going to be familiar in a not that it's going to all sound the same, but that they're going to sort of be able to follow the story you're telling.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Sometimes people want to make a change that's so dramatic, it should probably just be another artist project that you come up with. You get a feeling, like when I think of the Killers, probably my favorite band alive today, there's just a feeling that I go to get from them. And I would feel betrayed if they suddenly did something else.
Right.
So that is kind of the path that I took of just wanting to give people a certain feeling I didn't think they'd find elsewhere. And the other question is to just constantly making it exciting.
Right.
Make it exciting for yourself as a producer and to try to push yourself. And it's always fun. I mean, if you don't take it too seriously, you can always have fun.
Dude, 100%.
We make music for a living. So
Man, I love ending it on that note. Yeah. I have one last question, but before
I love ending it on that note. One last question.
Well, there's one. I ask it at the end of every episode. But before I do it, is there anything else you want to get out there? Anything we haven't covered you wanted to touch on?
I don't know. Sometimes I write a little list of good ideas on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I love that you're actually prepared. No one ever is prepared for that.
I wasn't specifically prepared for you.
Well, yeah.
Just have a bunch of ramblings.
No, I love that.
Okay. Little notes.
Yeah.
Things I feel I've learned have been important to me.
I love this. Yeah, hit me.
Okay. Maybe I'll write a book. I think that's my big idea.
You
I'll write
should.
a book. Big lesson I learned. Accept confrontation as a part of life. It's a must. Don't lie to yourself and pretend something doesn't bother you. Ever. It'll bite you in the ass. Always. I think people thinking at a higher level tend to see the similarities in things, and then thinking on a smaller or lower level tend to see the differences. It's like a cylinder. Imagine someone that sees in 2 dimensions. They would look at a cylinder and see a rectangle, or they would see a circle based on their vantage point. But someone who's able to see more dimensions sees that this thing is a cylinder. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not 2 different things.
Right.
It's one thing. I think people sometimes fail to see the similarities and the patterns and things.
Yeah. And people like to, it's almost instinctual, like people like to make those divisions. It's sort of a weird tribal thing. Like there's comfort in a weird way. It's not a good thing necessarily, but to be like, oh no, this is me and that's them,
Yes, exactly. Like to see dance music and hip hop, I think if you really care about what drives people, you at least try to see the similarities in those things.
Yeah, and there's
Both
so many
things
connections.
excite people, and I think a lot of people get caught on the surface level features of things.
Yeah,
like this is 150 BPM. Oh, this is 100 BPM. Oh, this is this is dance music, and this is a film score. But you can find a lot of patterns in things.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, innovating is not about coming up with something completely new. It's about finding 2 things that hadn't until then considered to be alike and putting them together.
Right.
Yeah, that is often
that's a key,
that's the shortcut
actually.
to innovation.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about me, I use elements from movie scores and dance music and Indian music. Is any of it really new on its own? I don't know. Probably not, right?
Yeah. But it's just that idea. And that's what a good DJ does too, right? They're good curators. It's about finding interesting elements and putting them together.
Yes.
And making something new out of that, which again goes back, this full circle, back to what we were talking about with sampling and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
It's not about necessarily every single idea has to be new, but it's about your own perspective on something and, just finding a little way to twist it, a little way to push it or update it or flip it, and all of a sudden you're in this brand new territory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing I'll say. Everything you buy with time. Success is a measure of how much your time is worth.
That's fantastic. I just had A-Track on the show, and he was saying something very similar about that.
What did he say?
Well, he was saying back from when he was DJing for Kanye West, to bring him up again, that one of the things he learned from that experience was watching how Kanye's whole machine and team operated, and that all of these people, you know, there's 20, 30 people that were around him at all times, the biggest function that they served was to free up as much of his time as possible.
Yeah.
And that was really the end goal for Kanye, was just to give himself as much time as possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, without too much more thought than that.
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, you never know when the creativity is going to happen. You never know, and especially...
The faucet will start pouring.
Exactly. And in a career, and I'm sure you can relate too, we were talking about how you get pulled in different directions. You go on the road, whatever it is, and it's frustrating if you want to sit down and work, you know?
Yeah.
And if you get an extra hour one of those days, that might be the hour you needed, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Now the question is, will you really do anything good with your time, or are you just going to watch Netflix?
I mean, well, for me, I already know the answer, but yeah.
I know.
Well, this has been really fun, man.
Yeah, it's
I
been
really
great.
enjoyed this. Last question.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it too hard. First thing that pops into your head, just a moment in your life, and this could be from recently, it could be from when you were a kid, anytime, when in a moment, music really deeply affected you. And that's meant to be a super broad question. You can kind of interpret it as you want. It could be stopped you in your tracks, changed the way you thought about something.
Yeah.
And just the first thing that pops into your head.
I remember hearing Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven.
Yeah.
And just playing it over and over again and crying and playing it and just crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really affected me.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
When you just said that, I thought about the song and felt like crying for a second. It's weird how that works.
Yeah. It's a heavy song.
It's a heavy song, but also it makes me think about, it's exactly why I can't stop doing music ever, is because there's nothing else in the world other than, you know, something terrible happening, but like that can so instantly put me in that state. And there's something about music that we are all connected to it on that deep level.
Yeah.
And you can just communicate so effortlessly to somebody else.
Yes.
Without ever having met them. I love that, man. That's great.
It also kind of seems like we got to step it up a little bit. We're making fucking
it's
dance
true.
music.
It's true. I have not really made a competitor to
No,
Tears in Heaven.
I haven't even come close. The same zip code as Tears in Heaven. But hey, life is long. We'll get there.
Absolutely, man. And people use different music for different things, you know?
Yeah.
Eric Clapton hasn't, he's not making 10,000 people jump up and down, you know?
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Perfect.
He's not at Ultra. He's not on the line.
Yeah.
Eric who?
I didn't see you in Miami.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, fuck, man. Okay, that's perfect. We're done.
All right.
Thank you, man.
Good talk.
All right, peace.
All right.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to KSHMR. Such a pleasure to sit down with you, man. And don't forget, the new video for his single No Regrets featuring Cruella is out right now. The link is in the description of this episode where you can go check him out, get all the music, all the tour dates, and his brand new song with Case and Cara is coming out on May 24th. My name is Willy Joy. You can keep up with me too. Hit me up, backtobackpod@gmail.com is my email address. You can send me questions, concerns. Let me know who you want to hear on the show. If you do something creative, send me your art. That's it for this week. I'm still sitting in my car out here in Delaware. I hope that wherever you're at in your day, if you're at the gym, if you're at home, in the car, at work, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling good too. That's it for this week. Thank you for all the love everybody showed me last week when we had Diplo back for the 2-year anniversary. That felt great too. I've been recording so many new episodes. I can't wait to share them with you. Until then, take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Go Go out there, relax, have some fun, and I will talk to you next week. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.